I'm nervous for the first time shooting one of these videos, or at least for the first time in a long time. This is going to be a little bit tough, so bear with me. If you don't like crying, then this isn't the channel for you for today. Dear God, your gifts are many. I'm grateful for every one. One of the greatest gifts you've given is the gift of my dear son. Thank you for sharing his life, dear Lord. Watch over him each day. May he be safe and free from harm as he goes about his way. Bless him through life's trials. Help him choose right from wrong. An example be for all to see, standing tall, proud, and strong. This is a message from my mom. One of the many, many text messages I received from her pretty much every single day. Words of encouragement. She'd send all kinds of different stuff to me every day. Just, I guess trying to uplift my spirits, trying to keep me happy, trying to keep me, my mom was really big on memories. And I have to admit that sometimes I would be a little frustrated with how into the past she was, because I was like, why doesn't she just kind of live in the now, But with her passing, I recognized our memories are all that we have. And I recognized really what a beautiful thing she was trying to do in sending me these pictures. Here's a picture of me and my daughter from many, many years ago. There might be some glare from the sun, so I apologize if you can't see some of these pictures, but I just wanted to share some of this stuff out with you guys because my mom had a very silly sense of humor. She had a very fun and funny and loving sense of humor. She'd send me articles every day. She'd send me just different things she thought I was interested in each day. And then her favorite thing to do was to share old Facebook pictures. And when I brought that up to friends and stuff, because on Facebook it will say, hey, this happened 5 years ago, this happened 7 years ago. Other people were like, oh yeah, she sent those to me a lot too. And our memories are really important. It's something that I feel blessed with. So let me just kind of back up here for a second and say, my mom died in the middle of the night on Saturday, and I got a call from my dad, and it was at 3:30 in the morning. And he was basically saying, I think that your mother just died. And now it's really weird wording, because he said he thinks that she died, but basically I don't think she was pronounced dead at the moment. He tried to help her, he tried to revive her. He was given instructions to do some CPR on her. Basically she fell in the middle of the night, and my dad went to kind of assist her, and my mom said that she was having trouble breathing. And so then my dad called 911, and when my dad called 911, they walked him through, how to help my mom breathe and stuff like that. And then the emergency people came, and they did what they could, and my mom just wasn't able to survive. My mom just, at some point, she told my dad, I think I'm dying, and she just couldn't breathe, and she kind of gargled, and that was it. We don't really know what she died from. We're just assuming that it's a heart attack or something like that. I don't want to focus in on, those 30 seconds or so, or that minute time frame of her falling and that being, a big part of her life, her dying in those couple of minutes there. What I do want to focus on is the life that she lived and the kids that she raised. And I want to basically just share something with you that I think gives you an idea of the kind of woman that she was. So my oldest brother, Mike, was a professional wrestler. He wrestled for WWE. Chris became a director, and I became whatever the hell this is called, a fitness influencer. I don't know, the people's coach, right? And what I think is really cool about that, while those are not standard jobs, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, but I think what's all telling about that is the fact that my mom gave us the greatest gift that you can ever give a child, and that's belief in yourself. My mother gave us so much belief in ourselves that it was almost a negative in some way, because I didn't end up graduating from college. My oldest brother didn't end up graduating from college. Chris somehow figured out a way to make it through school, and he went to USC Film School, and he figured out how to be successful through school. But all three of us were dreamers. And that dream came from my mom spending a lot of time with us and and investing a lot of time in us, and making sure that we really believed in ourselves, and make sure that we stayed connected to, not feeling sorry for ourselves. We stayed connected to trying to figure out ways of improving ourselves, trying to figure out ways of encouraging each other, and try to figure out ways of being positive. My mother grew up in a very negative setting. Being poor isn't necessarily a negative setting, but being poor and having a kind of a broke mindset, I think, is very negative. And I think that's the kind of family that she grew up with. Her parents were both alcoholics. She grew up with a lot of verbal abuse. I think there was some physical abuse going on in the home as well. She grew up with a lot of heartache. My dad winked at my mom on the bus. I think my dad was in like 10th grade, and I think my mom was in like 9th grade. And they've been together ever since. Really amazing, and just kind of a cool story of meeting your childhood sweetheart and kind of the American dream, right? But my dad, my dad was always the one to, show us how to like build stuff, or show us how to paint, or show us how to do this or that on the weekend. And my dad would take us to wrestling, and my dad would do all these cool, fun things with us. I always tell you guys all the time, I'm a byproduct of some really amazing parents. I should actually be much more mature than I am, and I should be much further along, considering how awesome my parents are. But my mom was always there to kind of pick up the pieces, when we were crying, when we had a problem, when we felt left out, or when we felt sad about something, or when we had a cut, or when we had this, or when we had that. And she was always there to, help us with that. And she gave us just an abundance of confidence. Any of you who have ever had an opportunity to meet me or my brothers or any of the family members, you probably have felt that. You probably have noticed that. And that came from my mom. My mom was my biggest cheerleader, and I'm really sorely going to miss that. My mom was also a big fan of the Underdog, because I think that she was always the underdog growing up. My mom was heavy from the time she was a kid. She was made fun of for being fat when she went to school. She was made fun of for being fat even at home by her dad, and just grew up under some really tough circumstances. But she survived all that, and she ended up meeting my dad, and they ended up developing their own great life together, and she was able to rise above. But whenever she would meet people that were fans of mine, she would take pictures with them. She would even just say, hey, like, my son would love to see a picture of it. If you want to flex your arm or something, I'll send it to him, and she would do that kind of stuff. Or she would say, hey, this guy's really a big fan. Can you just say hi to him for a second? And she would call me from her phone while she was like, at the grocery store or wherever she might be, downtown somewhere or something like that. And so my mom, when I was about 10, maybe 12 years old, my mom had a brain surgery. It's kind of a really weird set of circumstances, but my mom had a brain tumor, and she had a very large tumor removed from her brain. And from that tumor, from that time, and even after the surgery, my mom always had a real crazy tough time with balance. And she was always very scared of stuff. I guess understandable, but almost like an irrational fear of a lot of things. And as a kid, I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I was like, why the heck is she like that? As a kid, you don't understand these things that well. But, she just had this condition that she had to deal with, and she was absolutely, completely terrified, and under no circumstances would she ever think of getting on a plane. She thought that was the craziest, most ludicrous thing she's ever heard of. And she had no reason to get on a plane. But my brother Chris moved out to California and made a good life for himself. I soon followed. I started a family out here. And as soon as that woman had grandkids, her butt was on the plane, getting over her greatest fear. And it took everything that she had. She would sweat from head to toe, even just thinking about getting on the plane. But for my kids and for my family and for our family, she went through that just as hard as it was for her. She kind of made herself go through it. She knew it would be valuable for my children to be around her and to spend time with her, and she knew how much I needed the support, how much our family needed the support. As the years went along, my parents have been there for everything, and they've been the greatest babysitters that we've had. I was fortunate enough to be in a place where I was able to afford buying a home for them and buying a car for them. We actually shot a video where I bought a car for them, and my mom just burst out into tears of joy when we bought her the car. It's a brand new car!
No way! No way! No, Mark, no, and no. Oh my God!
On the front.
Oh my God!
Merry Christmas, Mama.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it was great having them. When the house that we bought for them was literally right next door, and I think a lot of people would think, man, you're crazy. You want your parents that close to you? Like, that's too close. And people would ask my wife too, they're like, in-laws, like that close? Like, no way. How is that possible? But my parents are amazing people, and they were great to have next door. They were both always really respectful of our time and really respectful. They'd still knock on the door and ring the doorbell and things like that. They wouldn't just drop in unexpected. Anyway, the show goes on, you know. It's sad to say, and it's some harsh words, but it doesn't matter who dies, the show still goes on. There's still a lot of people here, right? And what I've thought of on day one when this first happened, after, you know, going over to my dad's house. So after we did all the necessary stuff that we needed to do for that particular day, my wife was kind of like, hey, well, you know, what do you want to do now? And I asked my dad, I was like, is there anything else we can do? He's like, nope. I said, all right, well, I'm going to the gym because Mama didn't raise no bitch. And to me, you know, that's what this is about. You know, I'm going to go through some tough times. My dad's going to go through some really hard times. My brother's going to go through some really hard times. The family is going to be changed forever. The family dynamic will be changed forever. Rosemary Bell was a badass. She was an amazing woman. She was an amazing person. She had an incredible impact on a lot of people, and she had an amazing sense of humor. I wish that more of you got to see that, because she was really, really funny, and she was really random with her humor, and I always really appreciated that for her. My mom, you know, raised us, and she took care of us. She looked after us. She protected us, and she protected us in a way that we weren't sheltered and protected away from society. We were part of society so that we can be pliable enough to adjust, and so that I can be the man that you see here today, and I can decide whether I'm, you know, how sad I want to be about a particular situation, or how I want to interpret a particular situation, or I can say, hey, sitting around and crying about it doesn't seem to be that productive, although I will do that here and there. I will wallow in it because I'm not going to ignore the feelings, but I'm also not going to allow the feelings and the emotions to drag me around aimlessly. I think that's the most important thing for any of you dealing with death, or any of you dealing with tragedies in your own household. So after, you know, going through this a second time with family members and many times with close friends, what I want to give you a little piece of advice, and this is just something that I think, and you're entitled to your own opinion, and you're entitled to disagree with this, but I would strongly urge that you interact with the family members that you have here, even if you don't like them, even if you don't agree with them, even if you don't love the way that they raised you, even if you don't love different parts of them, but you just don't, I think you should play it out in your head right now. I think you should play it out in your head right now. What would happen if your brother died? What would happen if your sister died? What would happen if your mom died? What would happen if your uncle died? What would happen in your life if somebody in your family died, especially the ones that you have a problem with or have trouble with? What would it be like? I think that you might think that you wouldn't care, but I'm going to tell you right now from firsthand experience, and from having the candle burnt out on both ends with my brother and just being totally done with him, that is not true. I want him to be here more than anything, but he's not. While he was here, I am grateful. I'm forever grateful and thankful that, first of all, I'm forever grateful for the amount of time that I had with him, and I'm forever grateful for the amount of time I had with my mother. But I will tell you that even when it gets to be frustrating because somebody has a health condition, or even when it gets frustrating because somebody has a drug addiction, you owe it to yourself to try to make things right as best as you possibly can with that situation. And if you have somebody that's in a compromising position, I would never advise that you play a hand in assisting them in continuing to act the way that they're acting. But what I would advise you to do is say, hey, I just want you to know that I love you. I'm calling to tell you that I love you. I don't always agree with the things that you do and the way that you act, but anytime that you're ready, I'm here for you. And just leave it at that. And they might be like, what the fuck did that mean? You're gonna hang up the phone and be like, what was that all about? But just tell them Mark Smelly Bell sent you. They might understand. Anyway, I think that's a good way of dealing with stuff. And as I looked through my text messages from my mom, I was really I was pretty heartbroken because I sometimes felt like, just because of the different things I have going on in my life, I felt like I didn't have that much time for her. But as I looked through the text messages, there was a lot of back and forth. You know, I'm the green here, you know. There's a lot of back and forth. She sent out a lot of messages, but I tried to keep up the best that I could. So there was a good enough back and forth there, and I did communicate with her really as much as I possibly could. You never know what tomorrow brings. Life can be difficult. Try your best to not live a life full of a lot of expectations. Expect the unexpected, right? It's something that you want to play out. But I think it's really helpful. Something I learned from Stoicism and something I learned from a good friend, Jason Kalipa, years ago. Jason Kalipa told me basically, he said, hey, what would happen if you died today? What would happen to your business? Once he said that got the gears going for me to think about everybody else dying too. What would it look like? You know, and as ugly as it sounds, I was thinking, okay, my brother died, my mom died. My dad is old, so he might be next, right? My brother's older than I am, and he might be next after that, but it's probably, hopefully not for a long time for either one of them, really. But I might be the last man standing. You know, what does that look like? I think it's helpful to play through that exercise a little bit and to think about that a little bit. The only thing that you can do when somebody dies is you can take the best characteristics of that person and have them try to live through you. Even though I cried a little bit during this interview, and even though I've been crying quite a bit over the last few days, I don't really view this as being sad in a negative way. I view this as kind of a beautiful thing. This is a new beginning for my mother. My mother is very religious, so for her, it's her belief that this is a new beginning for her. For us here on earth still, we don't have the pleasure of seeing that person any longer. She's no longer with us. But guess what I get to do? Because my mom is part of me, literally part of me, right? She's part of my genetic code. Anytime I want to see her, all I got to do is this. Anytime I want to hear her, all I got to do is open up my heart, right? If I want to see her, all I got to do is close my eyes. If I want to hear her, all I got to do is open up my heart and open up my ears, and she'll be right there for me. I could play her voice right now, especially when she was angry with me. I could play her voice at any time. She used to, when she'd get real frustrated with us, she would say, "Come on." I was just thinking about, you know, she raised 3 boys, so you can imagine the amount of frustration. Last thing I want to finish with before I sign off, I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't mention this. Our household when I was a kid was absolutely fucking amazing. It was such a cool upbringing. And our house was the center of attention because my mother was like, I don't know what you'd be doing at these other boys' houses. I don't know what Mike would be doing. I don't know if you guys would be smoking pot or what you would be doing. So I want everybody to be right here all the time. And she bought enough food, and she made sure we had sandwiches and chips and whatever the heck else we needed. And so everybody always loved coming over to our house. And my mom, you know, would just like whip something up out of nowhere. She'd make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or grilled cheese or whatever. And yes, a lot of times she'd yell at us because we would go through a crazy amount of food, especially when she wasn't home. She'd come home and say, "Oh my God, you guys went through 3 pounds of turkey? What the hell's going on around here?" You know. But I think that she actually really loved it. And being a parent myself and recognizing that that is pretty intrusive. especially as your kids get older, to have a bunch of teenagers running around your house, having kids slamming doors and breaking shit, because kids don't respect anything, those little bastards, right? And so I'm really grateful that my mother was that way. I'm really grateful and appreciative that my dad is still that way. Take the best pieces of people when they pass on, take the best parts of them, try to have them live on through yourself, and that's a great way to honor their memory. Strength is never a weakness, and weakness is never strength. Catch you all later.